Good of the Spark, and I am super pumped that you're here to start with Spark this Monday morning on an awesome week, starting with educating yourself, getting smarter, getting motivated, staying focused on the thing that matters most to you this week, and that's elevating yourself and igniting lives of explosive significance. I hope today we got a great show for you. We're going to be talking about how to crush fundamentalists, but not like that. We're going to talk about how to lead with curiosity and crush your fundamentalism spirit, the idea in your brain that looks for stasis, and how to continue to pursue leadership and leading with curiosity. We're going to be covering that. But before that, we're going to be covering other news, what's going on in TradFi markets, what's going on in DeFi markets. And before that, we're going to be covering Astro-A.I, how AI is finally making its way to space. So many of you actually think AI is going to take over the planet. I don't think so. I think AI is actually going to make its way to space and move on because of its imperative to learn and self-learn. It's going to learn everything on this planet pretty quickly and move to space. But we're going to be talking about Astro-A.I briefly and other news such as TradFi and DeFi markets. But before any of that, before we cover all this cool stuff and leading yourself with curiosity, leading your friends, your business with curiosity, and crushing your fundamentalist brain, we're going to start with a morning cup of gratitude. What are you grateful for this morning? Tell me in the comments. If you cannot express what you are grateful for, I contend you are mentally and emotionally constipated, and you're limiting your ability to access your higher self, to access your deepest parts of appreciation and going through life. I think you're going to miss opportunities if you cannot start your day with gratitude. So, of course, I'm going to start with what I'm grateful for. What are you grateful for this day? I want to hear in the comments so I can hype you and pump you up. Let's start. I am massively, massively grateful for my self-education routine today. Tammy Schneider, how are you doing? Boom! Grateful for health and friendship. Tammy, this is a badass thing to be grateful for, health and friendship. You know, the TLE, as I call it, the total life experience, is fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, work I enjoy, and spirituality. And you got to feel a level 7 to 10 in all of those areas, I think, to feel healthy and happy and be experiencing the total life experience. Thank you so much. I'm pumped for you that you're grateful today, that you have health, that you have friendships, but that you're grateful for them as well. I'm also grateful for my health and friendships, and this even says grateful for Heath. So maybe you know my brother Heath, but I think you meant to say health. So, so I'll take the health and friendships, but maybe it's Heath. Who knows? Because I'm grateful for my brother Heath. But what I'm grateful for today, I'm super grateful for my routines and my self-education routines. I am reading so many books, it's not funny. I'm reading Tribes right now. I'm reading The Bitcoin Standard right now by Saifedean. I'm reading, Think and Grow Rich. These are all within a hand's grip away. I'm reading the Hagakure. I have a personal development routine that even when I'm at my lowest, I can always find my way out because I borrow from the wisdom of those who came before me. That's one thing I'm massively grateful for. A warm cup of gratitude. Tammy says, yes, oops. Oops. Health, yes, not Heath. So I appreciate that. Good morning, Tammy. Let's talk about, well, before we go on, I want you to take your time, if you're watching this later, to go ahead and express gratitude just like Tammy did here. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate that. And don't forget, tag, like, or subscribe. Tag someone who might need a little bit of encouragement, whether it's leading themselves or leading others or just feeling better about who they are. Tag them. I would feel honored and grateful for you if you did that, because my show grows just by likes and subscribes and tags like that. So thank you so much. And don't forget to catch us tomorrow for our other show, Not Crypto Bros. We have that on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then, of course, let's get into other news. News that'll make you smarter, or at least more intelligent, whether you're having coffee with a friend or over the water cooler. Let's talk about Astronaut.ai. Real briefly in other news. Why do I cover other news before we get into our lesson about leading yourself, overcoming fundamentalism, and leading with curiosity? Why do we talk about other news? Because I want to make sure that we're looking at headlines and together looking at them in an unemotional way, not letting other people trigger us or drag us into the narratives going on in media, so that you're first and foremost focused on yourself. And there's other super cool stuff that the news isn't talking about that I think would elevate you and elevate your conversation as you think about your role in the future. Let's talk about Astronaut.A.I. I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave. A lot of us are petrified of AI and what it could do to us, and I myself am not. It will disrupt our website company, Spark Sites. It will disrupt our billing company, Spark Billing Solutions. It will disrupt a lot. But do I think we're going to be left unemployed? Do I think we're going to be left by the wayside? No, not at all. I am super curious about all the cool things it can do. And the latest, if you have not experienced or experimented with AI, please do. There's a lot of resources. We have a course about ChatGPT for State of the Spark. Boop. Oh, I'm sorry. Boop. We have a course with State of the Spark. Write us, email us, contact us if you want access to that. Fantastic little course. So what is NASA doing with AI? Well, for those who don't know, NASA is actually having a new moon mission called the Artemis mission. And part of that mission is to establish an orbital around the moon, the first permanent orbiting space station around the moon from NASA, called the Lunar Gateway. Well, they had the idea of, instead of, if you've ever seen astronauts having to troubleshoot something on the space station, they often have these super thick 3-ring binders. They do that by intent. It's not that just that they're old, but if electric goes out on the space station, they want to make sure that they have the manuals in print and analog. But one thing they're beginning to experiment with is, what if you were an astronaut on a spacewalk and right into your mic could simply ask ChatGPT where that one wrench was, or what to do with that one bolt, or other questions about the space station? Or what if you could tell the space station and speak directly to it and tell it to rotate by so many degrees so you get better sunlight? That's exactly what NASA is doing. They have a ChatGPT-like interface that has a large language learning model, an LLM, and they will be able to perform maneuvers, conduct experiments, and do a variety of things. It will actually have control mechanisms of the ship or of experiments on the ship. Imagine you're at one point in a spaceship and you just wanted an update on what that experiment in the space lab was doing. They can simply ask ChatGPT, hey, what's going on with the lab? What's going on with the experiments? How far are we from the moon? When will we be landing? Can we reposition the porthole so I can look out? Imagine just being able to do that vocally or with typed commands through dialogue. This is the next major step in autonomous spacefaring. And if you've ever seen Star Trek and watched Captain Picard or Captain Kirk speak to the ship, this is exactly what you're being able to do, and this will expand. And the more we use it, the more it will learn. As I said, it's going to be deployed on the Lunar Gateway, the moon orbiting vessel. It will also be deployed on the Artemis mission for the space astronauts on the moon. You can ask the ship anything, and if it doesn't know what's going on with the ship, it will at least know where to find it in the manuals. And we'll say, go to this section and check this out, and you might get your answer. This is a super cool and useful and leveraged deployment. I'm going to drop a link here in the comments so that you have access to that. Very useful function of ChatGPT in space. So you're going to start seeing uses like this more and more. Imagine this on an oil rig at sea. Imagine this in a submersible. And it being able to warn you, things ain't going so hot. Maybe it's time to get to the surface. So you're going to be seeing this very soon. Check out the link if you're interested in how AI is now going to space. And as I said before, this is a grantism, a soothsaying into the future, a prophecy, if you will. One of Grant's micro prophecies that when AI goes from specific AI to general AI, I believe it will at that point have all of human knowledge and will have mechanisms to acquire more of human knowledge. But I don't believe we're going to see the Terminator on Earth. If anything, I believe its imperative is to learn and to expand its understanding and in its databases. Basically, it will basically pack itself up into a spaceship like Sputnik and shoot itself off into the cosmos, because I believe it then will be fulfilling its imperative of infinite learning. That's just my little prophecy. Let's talk about the markets. A lot of people want you to freak out about the markets. I want you to do the opposite. I want to inoculate you against the emotional ups and downs of the market. So we're going to share real quick what's going on in TradFi, the traditional markets, the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, what's going on in DeFi with crypto and the ups and downs there, and inoculate you against that. And then we're going to talk about leading yourself out of fundamentalism into a spirit of curiosity to become a better leader. Let's talk about the markets. In the TradFi markets, get used to this term. Get used to the TradFi term, traditional finance. In TradFi markets, the Dow is at 33,900. When I reported last week, it was at 34,500, down just a little bit. The S&P 500 is at 4,382. Last week when I reported, it's at 4,450. NASDAQ is at 15,033. The last time I reported, about 15,279. The markets are down just a peck, just a little bit. If they tell you, the sky is falling, the bull run is over, whatever, just shake your head and say, that's interesting, and move on, because the markets do this. And if you've been following the show at all, you know I report once a week on this, because we're not traders, we're not flippers, we're investors. We have a long-term plan. I hope you have a long-term plan, not financial advice, but I certainly do. It's dollar cost averaging and then throwing everything into investments that I really believe in, but I don't trade, I don't flip. And the Dow is just about sideways, up and down just a little bit. In the DeFi markets, now what does DeFi stand for? Decentralized finance. In the DeFi markets, the Bitcoin's at 30,400. Last week when I reported, it's at 26,300. Yes, it's up quite a bit. It's up fantastically, and we love those little pops, but will it go down? Will it go up? I don't know. I just keep dollar cost averaging. That's what I do. Ethereum's at 1,893. Last week it was at 1,700. Cardano, otherwise known as ADA, is at 29 cents. Last week when I reported, it was about 26 cents. And XRP by Ripple is at 48 cents. Last week I reported it's about 49 cents, about break even. And though Bitcoin saw a major upside, and all of us were very happy with that, XRP, Ripple, Cardano, ADA, Ethereum, Bitcoin, they're all at about the same thing. Why do we care? Why does the average person care? Now, if you're watching this on Facebook or someplace other than LinkedIn, if you follow me on LinkedIn, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm big on crypto, not for trading, not for investing, but for the tech and the philosophy of the tech. But we do have to pay attention to it, because I do believe some of these cryptocurrencies will be a part of our everyday future. You might not know anything about them, but there are still massive opportunities if you do. For the underlying DeFi markets. Pretty soon, you're just going to have a digital US dollar. And that will be fine, and that's all you care about, because it's simple. But if you know anything about crypto, you can be the middleman yourself. Talk about that some other day on one of our other shows, Not Crypto Bros, or find me on Twitter or follow me on LinkedIn, and we can talk about that. Let's talk about quick biz updates and how you can lead yourself. And by that, I mean lead yourself out of fundamentalism into curiosity, because curiosity is so critically important. In fact, I think it's the leading trait of all leadership. What? I think curiosity is the leading trait of all leadership. We'll talk about that in a second. Real quick, Spark Bookkeeping up and running as normal. Spark Sites, we're doing our live event this week. If you are in the Central Florida area or want to be, we're holding one of our first live meetup since the pandemic. We're going to be talking about Marketing 3.0, what we call community marketing. We've got guest speaker Nicole Bradham from Hot Mod Influencer Agency coming out for our website clients. We got that. And then that leads us to Spark Training. The Spark Training Company is relaunching its twice-a-year workshops, which are huge. They're going to be important. They're going to be impactful. Some of them are going to be about how to actually sell, how to build your business to sell the business, how to delegate, how to actually have a profit margin. Spark Training is big on that, but it's also big on personal development, how to set major goals, how to break out of your loops. We're going to be covering a lot of that in our twice-a-year workshops. That's up and coming. And then the Wonderland Investment Group, we're returning to levels that we saw before the stock market crash. But if you're in the Wonderland Investment Archon group, follow me in our Discord or our text chain, and we'll get you updates there. And on the real estate side, we're still applying for an SBA loan to buy the campground. Still looking at real estate on the East Coast. We already have some property in Cocoa. We're looking to expand our property holdings in Cocoa. But again, some of you are just curious about our financial freedom journey and how we're making progress there. And those are the quick updates. We have the website company is cruising, haven't hit a large growth year. We used to grow at about 40% a year, but the pandemic kind of flattened that out. Our real estate investments continue to grow in equity, and we're looking at more mature ways to finance properties, like growing our real estate holdings or business holdings through SBA financing, which we're looking at 10xing our holdings that way. But that's a journey, and it's not an overnight thing, and it's not a flash in a pan. It's a war of paperwork, and that's what we were working on over the weekend. But why do we talk about all this? Well, we're hoping to lead you, or at least guide you to lead yourself in your approach to freedom. And it's not just financial freedom. It's freedom frameworks. It's mental freedom. It's emotional freedom. It's health and fitness freedom. It's spiritual freedom. So we're talking about leadership today. And I see a major lack of leadership. Even leaders of businesses and small businesses, I see them wavering. And I've been often curious about leadership and what it takes to lead and how one can lead themselves and how one can lead others and what ends up making a leader. So as I've been looking at this, I've really been breaking this down, and I came across a framework that I really believe in that I wanted to share with you today on how to actually break the paradigms of fundamentalism, not just in yourself, not just in others, but in yourself, and therefore how to be a leader by remaining curious and continuing your journey of curiosity and what makes leadership. So let's talk about this real quick. I believe this one thing. Leaders are simply those who have remained curious. And I'm going to draw a contrast today between the curious and the closed. Basically, those who remain curious and those who are closed-minded. I believe all the other traits of leadership end up simply being the fruit of those who have remained curious. Those we call leaders, there is simply a gap mentally, emotionally, sometimes physiologically. If you see someone who's a fitness leader, all you're seeing is that there's a gap. And the degree of their leadership is the degree of the gap between where they're at and where other people perceive themselves to be. And so this gap is driven by two major factors. Number one, the individual who is considered a leader, how pervasive they have remained curious. Have they consistently remained curious? Leaders are those who have consistently, and I mean on a daily basis, have not yielded to the entropy of Netflix and shows and endless media and scrolling, but instead have invested that time to remaining continuously, sincerely, empathetically curious. Now, the other factor is, what is the mean or the average or the median person? What have they been doing? Have they read a book in the last year? Have they read a book a month? Have they only read a book a year? Have they not read any books and have skimmed headlines? How many shows have they watched? And shows are fine. I am all for fiction shows. I'm all for fantasy. But has that been the dominant input? Do they know more about what's going on with the Kardashians than what's going on with their own mind and in the world around them? So there's two factors. There's the person who we consider a leader, and they have made continuous progress simply by being curious and asking curious questions. And then everyone else who does not consider themselves leaders, and how slowly they are not only holding steady, but slowly receding. You see, you're either moving forward or moving backwards. Now, you might be thinking you're staying in the same place. Well, I'm not moving forward. I'm not trying to be a leader. I'm not too ambitious. I'm just holding steady. Just so you know, holding steady is entropy. Holding steady has a very slow entropy. And so you might seem like or feel like you're holding steady, but slowly the tide of your mind and your intelligence is waning. Because the gap that's growing, not only is it growing by leaders who are remaining curious, but it is also growing by those who are weighing the world down with their low intellect. There's a degrading factor. There's a half-life, if you will, of staying steady. There's no such thing as neutral. There's either getting worse quickly, getting worse slowly, or getting better at any degree. And if you're just beating the median of getting better, getting 1% better every day, the gap between you and everyone else is the degree of your leadership. Now, there's other frameworks out there. We could be talking about wealth building. You don't have to be extremely a great leader to actually build wealth. But to make the impact that you want to make in the world, I believe you should pursue being a leader. And I believe that that is simply remaining curious. Now, there is a spectrum here. And on one end of the spectrum are those who are curious versus those who are closed. And to address the fundamentalism, there are those who are free thinkers, these ever curious people, and then there's those who are fundamentalists. This is the way it is. I've often said about fundamentalist Christianity that nearly every sect of Christianity are those who have decided to stop growing. Those who have decided that they will not look for the unfolding revelation of God in anything else. They have stopped applying it. If you think of the Quakers, they decided that so much technology, let's call it the horse and buggy, that was enough technology, but any technology after that was wrong. And then there was a lot of modern Christian movements who thought the television was wrong, but the radio was okay. Then there was many fundamentalist Christians who decided the internet was wrong, but telephones and television were okay. Satellites were okay. It's a very subjective measure, but you can measure nearly every sect of Christianity anthropologically in one sense based on where they drew the line and said, I will not accept this growth in technology any further. Fundamentalism. Let's step off of Christianity for a second. Fundamentalism, fundamentalist thinking, closed-minded thinking is thinking that says this is the stopping point and I will go no further. And what they've done is they have eliminated their ability to be curious. They've eliminated curiosity and said, no, I have the answers and that's it. I have the answers I want and that's good. Now, I want to solve this because this is a major problem in our species. If you are feeling stuck, chances are you've said this far and no further in some aspect of your life. Maybe it's personal development. Maybe it's spiritual development. Maybe it's fitness development. Maybe it's relational development. You have said, this is as far as I'm going and no further, and you've dug your heels in. Chances are, if you're feeling stuck in your job, it's around career learning. Chances are, if you're feeling stuck in your relationship with your significant other, your partner, chances are you said, this is as far as I'm going and no further. The same with your fitness and health. If your waistline just keeps inching a little bit bigger every single year, and you're feeling more and more lethargic just a little bit more every single year, chances are you've dug your heels in and said, you have rules that are fixed. I don't go to the gym. I don't do it. I only work out under these conditions, and those conditions happen to be conditions that you can't reach right now. Do you know who you are? You know who I'm speaking to. Many people who have closed thinking, who feel stuck, are stuck for good reason because they don't believe they will go any further. They have chosen this. The curious continue to grow. So I believe as you look around, if you see something stuck in the workplace, it's a whole group of people who have chosen no further like you. If you think politics are stuck, it's a whole group of people who have chosen no further, including you. If you see something wrong with your government, if you see something wrong with your faith, if you see something wrong with your marriage, it's a whole group of people who have chosen to close themselves off instead of being curious. They're closed-minded instead of curious-minded. And they've said no further, and it's a whole group that have done it. If your business is feeling stuck, you and all of your employees have chosen to be stuck instead of curious. We are at Spark Sites natively curious about AI. We're experimenting with AI-developed sites, AI-developed content. We're having an AI-first approach now because not just because we're trying to keep up with the market, but because we're trying to keep up with our curiosity. Stump Nation, good morning. How are you being curious this morning? Thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing fantastic. So if you see something amiss in the world around you, you can put it on a spectrum of those who have remained curious versus those who have become closed-minded, those who are free thinkers versus those who are fundamentalist in their thinking. And the difference is those who said, I've come this far, but no further. I can't grow anymore. I'm not going to grow anymore in this area of life. And so the reason I'm talking about this is all you have to do to be a leader is to remain curious. And I believe all the other traits that we ascribe to leadership come from this trait. They're the fruit of you having remained curious. How does YouTube work? Stump Nation, me and my friends, we meet on an accountability call twice a week and just say, what are you learning about the YouTube algorithm? What are you learning about content creation? We've decided that LinkedIn is blowing it up, and it is far faster. LinkedIn and Twitter, our LinkedIn and Twitter audiences are growing far faster. I never would have thought. I would have thought it was all on YouTube. We're remaining curious, and therefore we're becoming leaders to people around us. Not because we're necessarily focusing on all the many things of leadership, but we're focusing on being curious instead of closed-minded. So I want to give you a few quick principles on how You can be curious. And then the number one thing of the explore thing, which we'll talk about, I have an acronym for you called ALLS. We're going to talk about that in a second. But real quick, a few quick differences between those who are curious versus those who are closed-minded. Those who are curious always use the phrase, interesting. When someone says something you disagree with, we're often countered that, well, I know that that's not true, or I know I've looked at this, or we have this other phrase. When we go into an argument, when we are closed-minded and just want to argue, we have this phrase, I know, and then we fill in the blank after that. I know this, I saw that, I think this. But the curious have a phrase that goes, interesting, tell me more. It's an immediate default position. If you want to remain free-thinking, if you want to remain curious in the world and thereby a leader instead of closed-minded, when someone says something you initially disagree with, the words out of your mouth are, interesting. Tell me more. Principle 1. Principle 2. The advantage of being natively curious versus closed-minded, to be curious and to be a leader through curiosity, your identity is in higher things. It's in the learning itself. When someone says, what are you all about? You say, I'm about learning. Are you about the left or the right? Are you conservative or are you liberal? Are you pro-America or anti-America? Are you pro-war, anti-war? Whatever it is, those who are natively curious go identify with the higher things. Well, I'm really all about solving some of these dilemmas. The closed-minded have a position. They identify with temporal things. Whether it's Second Amendment in America, whether it's Second Amendment or abortion, globally, whether it's we should have CBDCs or we shouldn't have CBDCs, the closed-minded pick a side. Maxis, I believe they might be right, they might be wrong, but I believe that in the area of being a maxi, they're closed-minded. I know that in the areas that I'm a maxi, I'm slowly becoming a Bitcoin maxi, and I got to watch myself because I'm trying to remain natively curious. I'm trying to maintain my curiosity so I can remain a leader. But as soon as you become a maxi, as soon as you become closed-minded, as soon as you become a fundamentalist, no, this is the way it should be. You slowly start closing doors of opportunity, and you begin to identify with that thing. And here's the challenge with identifying with a temporal thing. When your identity over here as a closed-minded person, when your identity is tied into a temporal thing, as soon as that thing is disproven, as soon as the technology changes, as soon as science reveals something new, you're in an identity dilemma. And when your identity is challenged, you tend to double down and close-mind yourself even further. I got involved in a conversation on LinkedIn the other day, and someone was a Bitcoin maxi, and they made fun of someone who manages family offices. For those who don't know family offices, when you have billionaires and centimillionaires, they often delegate their money to a family office, and that family office stewards their investments. And this person managed 50 family offices. This was a smart cat. And the Twitter person or the LinkedIn person was making fun of this manager of family offices and made fun of them and said, this person asked if you can make infinite money with Bitcoin by dividing it lower and lower. Huh, what a plebe. And everyone in the comments started making fun of this person. And I stepped in curious. I stepped in curious and said, well, maybe this person is aligning with their clients' values. Their clients, mega wealthy people, play infinite wealth games. Mega wealthy people, when they look at Bitcoin and they see its limited supply, they get really shady. Not because there's anything wrong with limited supply, but they're used to playing infinite money games. Banking loops of investments of, well, I lend, I get equity, I borrow on my own equity, and it's this infinite money loop. So traditional finance looks more appealing, but when Bitcoin says we have limited 21 million supply, that's actually something that's a red flag. But to the maxis, they can't believe. They're indignant of why anyone would think anything else. Were you trying to build wealth? Are you trying to fix inflation? What are you trying to do? Those who are curious constantly learn at every step of the way, and their identity will then prevent them from working with someone like who's managing 50 home offices. Their identity that this is the best thing ever, this limited supply. Well, maybe it's a bug to other people. By remaining curious, you open up doors of opportunity by validating someone else's position. So the second thing is, the first is that curious people have the phrase, interesting, instead of that's not how that works. They also identify with the higher things, and that's the learning itself, as opposed to temporal things like it's this way right now and should always be. The third thing that curious people do is they can reinvent themselves at any time. Curious people can reinvent themselves at any time. Closed-minded people, because they've doubled down and their identity is wrapped up in temporal things, it's really difficult to change your identity. If you always go through life and say, hey, man, I'm always growing, I'm always changing. If you disagree with me now, check in with me next week, I might change my opinion. That's being open-minded and curious, but when you are closed-minded, you have to double down on that thing. And if there's any threats to the thing you identify with, whether it's religion, whether it's the Constitution, whether it's liberalism or progressivism or whatever it is, if something threatens it, you have to double down to protect your identity. But curious-minded people can transcend that. They're focused on the human journey. They're focused on continuous learning. They're focused on outcomes. I just want the outcome. I want people to be happy. I want wealth to abound. I want abundance. And the means by which that happens could be anything. They're more focused on free thinking and flow than fundamentally this is how it should be. The fourth trait of the curious-minded is how they go through life. They explore first. They decide and understand what the consequences are of that thought, and then they choose whether or not that thing fits what they want. You see, the curious-minded have the flexibility to explore a thought. For example, a lot of people think they understand that the sin that happened in the Garden of Eden was Adam ate the apple. And I often present a whole other view of this, but no one can even fathom it. And people dig their heels and go, that's wrong, that's blasphemous. But the natively curious can think nimbly. They can think synthetically and come up with new ideas and new thoughts and new interpretations. And hear me on this, new revelations about things around them. Because they're natively curious. They explore first and then ponder the options in a free-flowing way. And then they have the freedom to choose, do I like the consequences here? And it doesn't matter what the topic is or what the issue. Bitcoin, abortion, Second Amendment, immigrants, trans rights. If you are a natively curious person, you will first develop a degree of empathy to understand and explore that thing. Step one, explore that thing. Then step two, understanding the good and bad consequences for yourself and your own goals. And then number three, you have the freedom to choose what you will want to align with or welcoming that thing into your life. The closed-minded don't have that option. The closed-minded have to look at a thing and decide right away. They choose first how it impacts them. And then they close off good and bad consequences entirely. Good consequences and bad. They close it off thinking they're just limiting the bad consequences, but when they close it off, they're also closing off the good consequences. Those who are closed-minded versus those who are curious, the gap gets wider and wider. Remaining curious is actually much harder. This is why people take the easy path when they get closed-minded. Being closed-minded is actually an easier path. Hear me on this. Entropy and disintegration and death and dying is coming to us all. And when you get closed-minded and you stop growing psychologically, belief-wise, theologically, fitness and health, you're starting to degrade immediately. Also, you can argue a point with a person outside of them, and then even if it gets heated, you can walk away. And in walking away, you get a dopamine rush that, I stuck with it. When you remain curious, you are wrestling with your own assumptions. And this is a very difficult thing to do. When you remain curious, you wrestle with your own assumptions. And in wrestling with your assumptions, it's very difficult. There's no dopamine hit. When you walk away from the conversation going, interesting, you're challenged. And then you have even more hours and minutes and days of pondering this new idea. There's no dopamine hit. But that makes you resilient. That makes you psychologically strong. To remain curious makes you psychologically strong because you don't get the dopamine hit of arguing and then winning or arguing and losing, but keeping your position. You get a dopamine rush from that, like watching Netflix or anything else. It's addictive to argue a point and win. But the slower, long-lasting benefits of not arguing, of wrestling with your own assumptions and remaining curious, those are the benefits. Now, how do you explore? And I want to give you this quick acronym for you to remember, ALLS. How can you actually start to cultivate a mind of curiosity? I really recommend you dive deep into this. I recommend you allow yourself to remain curious, to use phrases like, interesting, to actually ponder what is possible instead of arguing a point. So how does this work? Real quick, how do you continue to explore and not get closed-minded? Here you go, number one, or A. The A in alls, A-L-L-S, alls. Ask open-ended questions. Don't ask yes or no questions. Ask open-ended question. An open-ended question, a closed-ended question is, did you like it? Yes or no. Do you agree? Yes or no. These are closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions are, what did you learn from that? What are you learning? What was the best aspect of that? How did you come across this idea? Open-ended questions. Become a master of open-ended questions. A in alls. How do you explore alls? Ask open-ended questions. The first L, let go of being right. You do not want to be right, my friend. You might want to be wealthy. You might want to be fit. You might want to have a life full of love, but you don't want to be right. If you're right, you've stopped growing. Being wrong, being the smartest person in the room is not a good thing. Being the most curious person in the room often makes you the least smart person in the room because you're asking questions like, I didn't know that. You're saying things like, I didn't know that. You're asking questions like, how does that work? You sound, for all intents and purposes, like the dumbest person in the room. Everyone else has answers. Let go of being right. A, ask open-ended questions. L, let go of being right. The second L, listen and understand before responding. Listen and understand. This is how you lead. You listen and understand. When your employees are upset, you don't just say, no, that's not how it is. Get out of here. I know what we're doing. Get out of here. You listen to your employees and go, we could do that. That's a great idea. Tell me more. A, ask open-ended questions. L, let go of being right. L, listen and understand before responding. S, stay present and be open. Stay present and be open. Quite often in an argument, especially for closed-minded people, they already have their opinion. And in part of their argument mentality is to not listen. That's actually a tactic. They don't do it on purpose, but it's an unconscious defense mechanism to their identity. They just don't listen. So when you're talking, they're not present. They're thinking about their notifications. They're thinking about the next appointment. And they might not even be doing it intentionally. They might be thinking things like, well, man, I'm really busy. This person's saying stuff I've heard before. I'm so over it. Have you been there? I've been there. I'm there nearly daily. So it's an effort to stay present. But if I'm going to remain a curious person and create the gap between me and other people because of all the fruits that come from curiosity will make me a leader, then I'm going to fight through that and explore. And in exploring, A, ask open-ended questions. L, let go of being right. L, listen and understand before responding. S, stay present and be open. And if you can do this, I guarantee you will start to see the fruit of leadership in your life. You'll have more answers, and those answers might come out as questions. Well, guys, what if we did this? Do you think it would work if we did that? Do you think it would work if we adopted AI? Do you think we could get ahead a little bit more? And you'll have suggestive leadership. People go, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, how did you have time to think of that? They were so busy regurgitating the same old ideals and the same old ideas because they were being closed-minded. We just now got stable. I don't want to mess with a new thought. Hey, guess what? New thoughts are happening. Our competitors are passing us by. So do you think it would be helpful if we started learning more? Leading by asking questions, by native curiosity, I guarantee you're going to see more fruit from this. So why am I talking about any of this? I encourage you, stay curious. It's the curious who will lead us into the future. And let me tell you something, you might not think you're a leader, but so long as you're curious, you're going to continuously be placed in roles of leadership because we need the curious. We need the fruits of what come from curiosity, innovation, creativity, empathy, new pathways, new solutions. Everyone wants the fruit, but everyone wants to be right in the process. That's not you, though. You're going to lead. Why is this you? Why am I encouraging this? Because I want you to go out there today and stay curious. I want you to see the doors that will open as you stay free thinking and curious, as you eliminate your fundamentalist, closed-minded thinking about business and about politics and about positions and about being right. As you let that go, I guarantee you will see opportunities. And why do I care that you see more opportunities? Because I care that you walk more in your definition of freedom. Why do I care about that? Because I believe that no matter what we do today, we need to impact the mission. igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day.